Quilico was one of the leading operatic baritones of the 20th century. His sudden passing on July 15th, 2000 was a great loss to the musical world. Quilico performed at many of the world's great opera houses, Covent Garden, the Paris Opera, the Bolshoi, and the Vienna Staatsoper, to name only a few. He was a stalwart of the Metropolitan Opera, appearing nearly 300 times over 25 consecutive years. At the Met, he sang under the baton of James Levine, Zubin Mehta, Richard Bonning, and Claudio Abbado, and alongside tenors including Luciano Pavarotti, Placido Domingo, John Vickers, and Jose Carreras, and sopranos Joan Sutherland, Renata Tebaldi, Renata Scotto, and Beverly Sills. Louis Quilico was an ideal interpreter of the great Italian and French composers, but it was his defining portrayal of Rigoletto, the hunchbacked jester in Verdi's tragic masterpiece, that won him international acclaim, as well as the nickname Mr. Rigoletto. He sang the role more than 500 times, the last being at the National Arts Centre in Ottawa in September of 1994. After his retirement from the operatic stage in 1998, he continued to perform, touring extensively with his wife, the celebrated pianist Christina Petrowska Quilico. Together they made 4 recordings and a teaching video, and collaborated on the book Mr. Rigoletto in Conversation with Louis Quilico. In this book, Quilico shared his views on singing, on opera, and on his signature role, Rigoletto. He also talked about his own personally devised vocal techniques, sharing them with a new generation of singers. What is missing in the printed version of these conversations is Quilico's own voice and his unique personality. In these recordings, we hear him speak in his own words, with his own voice, unfiltered and unedited. Speaking personally, baritone Louis Quilico, Mr. Rigoletto, in Conversation with Christina Petrowska Quilico. In this conversation, Louis tells the story of Act 4 of Rigoletto and reflects on seeing the opera with modern eyes. Also, performing Wozzeck leaves Louis exhausted and in need of medical attention.
The third act. This is the end of the third act. Now the fourth act is an evening where there's a big storm. And in fact, the special effects have always a lot of fun to do this kind of, because the thing is, there's what do you call it's a night with thunder and lightning, and I have to say one thing. Really, they can do something very beautiful. But sometimes they miss, you know. Anyway, you see, it's the house, so far remote, of Sparafocile. It's not even a house, it's a house that's all broken off and everything. And all of a sudden, you see Rigoletto bringing his daughter there, and all of a sudden he turns towards her, and he wants to know, you still love him? Because what he wants her to understand, he knows that he's going to come there, and he want him to betray himself. That his daughter will understand, and she would say, oh, Daddy, I'm so sorry, and all that. Anyway, he brings her there, and like I told you, he just said, do you love him? And she said, yes. And if you realize that how nasty as a person he is, would you still love him? And she says, I don't know. It's very difficult. And Rigoletto is always disarmed by this little girl that doesn't give him a complete answer. And he hope by trying to make her understand. This is why I said to you before, Rigoletto could be a drama of the past 100 years, 200 years, like it could be a drama of today, because it's exactly the same thing. Anyway, all of a sudden, he says, "Come here. I want you to see something." And he brings her right next to the house. He says, "Watch inside the house." And more or less, she wants to know what she's supposed to see. And she says, I see a man. Wait. And all of a sudden, the Duke comes in. And all of a sudden, she says, my God, there he is, you know. And she cries, Padre mio. And all of a sudden, the old man says, well, this is his habit. This is what he does. You're going to understand now. All of a sudden, she's noticing that he's making, because Sparafucil has a sister that helps him in his killing, for instance. And all of a sudden, he came there to have an affair with the sister of Sparafucil. That just to show you what kind of man the Duke is, you know. All of a sudden, Rigoletto tries to make Gilda understand. And it's one of these things. Her love is so strong that she, even if he's having an affair with somebody else, she will accept it. And all of a sudden, he sings his famous "La donna immobile," woman is fickle, and all that stuff. He's talking about woman, you know, what is a woman? Woman is nothing, you know. It's more or less only one thing you should do with a woman is to make love, and that's it, you know. But that doesn't convince her. That really doesn't convince her. No way. And all of a sudden, at the moment, you see Sparafucil and the sister, and all of a sudden, the Sparafucil comes out of the house, and he asks the old man. But before that, Rigoletto took Gilda and took her apart, that she could not hear the conversation. She hears the conversation because we sing. But the thing is, the idea is that she's not supposed to hear that conversation. And all of a sudden, the Sparafucil says, your man is there, come back at midnight, and I will have the job done, and you don't have to come back. And Rigoletto said, no, I want to be here. I want to see it. And the Sparafucil says, all right. All of a sudden, he goes back and grabs Gilda, bring her back, and all of a sudden the Duke is making love with the sister, Maddalena, and that's where comes the famous quartet of Rigoletto. And the Duke is declaring his love for this woman, you know, and Gilda is cannot accept. At one moment, all of a sudden she leaves Rigoletto because she cannot stand it, and Rigoletto goes and bring her back, and he more or less, what he wants to do is to try to torture her so much that she will. It's not a torture with anything. It's words. See what he's doing. See what he's doing. See what he's doing. And now, do you understand who he is? You understand? And she doesn't want to understand. And Sparafucil, Rigoletto himself is reminiscing for himself that he's going to have the last word in this. All of a sudden, this is finished. He takes his daughter, Rigoletto, grabs his daughter and says, listen, now I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go home, get dressed, and I want you to go to Verona. And she says, yes, Daddy. But the famous Gilda, don't go to Verona. Come back here. Because she wants to see more. You know, it's one of these things that the women sometimes don't believe. Even if it happened, they don't believe. They don't want to believe. That is a big problem. Anyway, all of a sudden, Gilda disappeared, and Rigoletto remained on the stage with Sparafucci that came out. And he says, listen, it's going to cost you 20 scudi, I don't know, let's say $20 to kill him. And he says, all right, I'll give you 10 in advance, and I'll give you 10 after you will do the thing. It's fine. And Rigoletto leaves. All of a sudden, when Rigoletto leaves, about not very long after this, while you see the Duke is going to sleep and all that, all of a sudden, you see Gilda coming back. And then there's a trio between Sparafucci, Maddalena, and Gilda. Now, the trio consists that all of a sudden, Maddalena says, listen, I'm in love with this man. I don't want you to kill him. We have to do, and Sparafucci says, I'm a man of honor. I'm a man of the sword. If I promised I was going to kill him, I'm going to kill him. And at that precise minute, there's a knock at the door. And all of a sudden, they stop and wondering what it is. Then all of a sudden, Gilda says, listen, I'm a poor person, and is it possible that I could have a way to rest at your home and all that? And they say, and all of a sudden, Maddalena has the brilliant idea and says, listen, don't kill him, kill the one who's right here, and give it to the old man. What you're going to do, you're going to throw it in the water, and you will never know the difference. All of a sudden, they agree to do that. And all of a sudden, there's a lot of music there, and it's always about the same thing. All of a sudden comes the moment that Gilda knocks at the door again and asks to enter. And finally, they decide to let her enter. And all of a sudden, the moment she enters, Sparafucci grabs her, a dagger, and puts her in a bag. Because that's the way the Duke was going to finish, in the bag. Anyway, that is finished. And all of a sudden, then you see Rigoletto coming back. And all of a sudden, he starts to talk about, now he's a great man. He has his vengeance. This man will be destroyed, and that's it. I'll be satisfied only at that point. It will have served his purpose, that to have saved my daughter's honor. All of a sudden, he goes and knocks at the door. As Sparafucci says, who's there? And he says, it's me. He says, I've done the job. All of a sudden, he comes out with the bag on his back. And he says, he put it down, and he says, listen, I'm going to, no, Rigoletto says, no. He says, Sparafucci says, let me throw him in the water. He says, no, I will throw it myself. Don't do nothing. Sparafucci, when he sees like that, he says, all right, there's the little river here. Go a little bit further, it's deeper. This way will be much easier. And finally says, good night, and I give him his money. All of a sudden, when Sparafucci takes his leave, Rigoletto is remain by himself with the bag in front of him. Finally, he says, he starts to come up with a monologue stating that finally justice has been done, and in fact, he feels like a giant in front of this corpse. And usually, what I usually do, I kick the bag. And that gives, very often, a tremendous heart feelings for the public. Because the public knows it's Rigoletto's daughter in the bag, but Rigoletto doesn't know it's his daughter. And all of a sudden, he keeps on talking about, and he reminiscing about how wonderful it is to have vengeance and all that. Then from a distance, all of a sudden, he hears the voice of the Duke. And all of a sudden, taken by stupefaction, he stops and starts to look at the bag and says, But no, it's not possible. He's dead. He's in the bag. Is my mind playing me dirty trick or something like that? And finally, you realize that the Duke is not the one in the bag. And all of a sudden, he goes at the door of the house of Parasfucci and start to bang up the house, but nobody answers. And finally, the Duke finish singing and leaving the house by another exit. Rigoletto remains on the stage with the bag and wondering, but who is in the bag? It is not possible. I don't understand. I would like to know who's in the bag, but he doesn't dare to find out. And finally, he decides that he bends down and opens the bag, and there's a what do you call there's a lightning that goes through the sky and illuminate what he doesn't want to expect in the bag. Finally, he discovered it's his daughter. And through an alarming moment, start to say to himself, no, this is not possible, this is not possible. And it is not my daughter, she's gone to Verona. And another lightning comes across the stage and sees her again. And finally, he realizes it's his daughter. And he grabs her in his arm, and all of a sudden, Gilda is revived a slight bit, not being very, very strong because she's been dagged. All of a sudden, the father says, he starts to tell her that I'm the assassin, and all of a sudden he decides that he was going to go and get some help, and all of a sudden he goes to the house again, bang, bang on the door, nothing happened. Finally, he comes back to his daughter, and then there's a tremendous moment here, while Gilda, being in the bag, asks forgiveness to Rigoletto about her action, and especially, please forgive the Duke. And Rigoletto, in reality, cannot accept this as an ending and refuse it. But being to see his daughter so ill, he completely forgot about the whole thing. And all of a sudden, the Gilda start to talk about, well, Daddy, I'm leaving, and I'm gonna see Mommy in heaven, and I'm deeply sorry. And it goes on, till the moment she dies. And all of a sudden, for a moment, you see Rigoletto on the stage, Gilda completely limped, and Rigoletto looks at the body, and all of a sudden, in his mind, and singing it at the same time, he says, the malediction was on me. And that is the end of the opera. It's a great opera. Like I always said, if God could permit a man, a human being, to do something to a dear love person, to give one of the greatest moments of their life, I think I would like to give to people, to be able to sing Rigoletto at least once in their life, because it's such an emotional, so emotional and so taken, and you go through so many phases, dramatic phase, beautiful phase. The whole thing is, how can I say, it's so different than your usual life. It's very unusual. And that is the reason why it makes it very interesting, because your temperament is taken over, your goodwill is taken over, everything is taken over, because Verdi wrote an opera that has so much emotional point that unless you would be very without love or anything like that, maybe you would not appreciate the opera. But like I said, the opera is so full of emotion that it's a great moment of life. I feel that each time I did Rigoletto, it's like I was living another life. And the thing is, with Rigoletto, there's one thing that I found that I understand a lot of Rigoletto, a lot of baritone that sings Rigoletto or try to sing Rigoletto are really scared of the role because it's a role that practically possesses you. You cannot, it's not practically tangible that you can be the, more or less, the master. Rigoletto very often might become the master during the performance. And I see myself very often in the, especially in the third act, in the duet with her, while they have a kind of a very loving father and daughter reunion that is so incredible that very often I'm stuck completely, and the first thing I know, I will start to cry.
In this opera, for me at least, Gilda comes off as the only one with a pure love. The men come off very badly. In today's society, especially concerning women's issues, the men come off, one as a tyrant of a father with an obsessive relationship with his daughter. The Duke comes off as a womanizer with no morals or scruples. How do you see this opera in today's society in relation to that?
Well, I think if you look at it very carefully, I think there's not much change, except one thing: the emotion that you find might be a little bit subdued for the way of living of today, because Rigoletto, you don't really find that today anymore in society. Mind you, some of them they do, but in general, no, because it's how can I say? It may be overpassed, but at the same time, it does exist, but in another form, and this is the reason, you know. Gilda, you said, is just a moment. What did you say about Gilda?
She was the only one with a true love, a pure love.
I have to say one thing. I will disagree with this, because Gilda has a true love, but at the same time, the father has completely true love for her. He's so afraid. It's like today, no matter what you're going to tell me, that you take today, you love your daughter and everything, but at the same time, you never know, and it comes at the point sometimes you're wondering. It's a difficult thing for young people to go through life, because it's a dangerous thing. How many times that we have today, that we hear on the news, a Gilda that has been killed, rape, and all that stuff. What do you think is Gilda? It's a bit that case. But it's discovered before she dies. But very often today, it's not even discovered. But it's still there.
No, I see Rigoletto as having an obsessive love for his daughter. It wasn't exactly the way to show love by keeping a daughter trapped in the house, no matter what excuse you give it, whether it's saying that you're afraid to let her out. He was afraid to let her fall in love, to experience life, and I find that Verdi made the women characters rather shallow. It's not altogether the opera singer's fault, but Gilda does not have a great role in relation to Rigoletto and the Duke. But in regard to the relationship, no, I find that Rigoletto did not have a normal life. He saw, as you said yourself, he saw himself only many times, and not what was best for his daughter, but only what was best for him. That reflects on the morals of that period of society, where virginity was considered a prize rather than development of the emotional state. He refused to give information to his daughter regarding her mother. He did not treat her as a woman. He treated her as an infant by not giving her all the information about her background and having a conversation as an adult with her.
Well, listen, there's a lot of controversy on this kind of opera. First of all, it's not an opera that Mr. Verdi wrote. Mr. Verdi wrote the music, but the plot himself was done by somebody else, Alexandre Dumas. And that is the reason he took only what could be subversible in the play and put it in the opera. And there's one thing that is marvelous about Verdi, that Verdi, the way he wrote the opera, very often you will feel that something will happen in the music. Do you want to make a point about Verdi?
I made the point before, was a product of that society that women were treated as brainless infants. The music is wonderful, of course, but the libretto, I think if it were changed or written today, would have to accommodate women of today, which would not put up, a woman of today would not put up with a Rigoletto and would not, certainly not put up with the Duke of Mantua, the way they're portrayed. I find these operas as historical pieces with glorious music, but it's certainly a sad reflection on women's times in that period of history.
Well, I have to say one thing. In those years, women did not have the liberty that they have today. That's one thing for sure. And the protection was not there. Woman was there to service the men. Today, it's not exactly the same thing. All this has been changed. But thank God that even in this kind of environment and play, let's face it, there's still a romanticism, according to this, more in those days than today. Because what happened, being that there was always that mystery because of the woman would have a love affair, and the first thing you know, would be betrayed about it. Today, women are they have too much freedom, and I think that's the big problem. They're not very much in compassion with their own sex, and I think that is the big problem. I think women should understood a little bit better themselves than just plainly trying to become a man.
I'd like you to talk about modern opera. You did Berg's Wozzeck. Can you tell me about the character you played? This was not a very nice man either. Especially, talk to me in relationship to Rigoletto. How do you feel Berg's characterization was? The libretto and musically.
I've done Wozzeck only once in my life, and I have to say one thing. It's going to be quite a few years back. It was 1959. I had to do it for CBC. But I have to say one thing. I did enjoy it. And as far as I can remember, because from now till 1959, it's going to be quite a few years, like I said. And the libretto has taken a little bit. The only thing that I retain about the whole thing, it was very interesting, but I found it very difficult. First, understanding because of the music being so so different of everything I ever done at that point, was quite a challenge for me. But at the same time, I felt that it was my first glorious part that I would think that I would have done till that moment, because you were not talking about Verdi or Puccini that has a kind of musical line that carries you. This, you have to carry yourself by yourself. It's a play put in music. And the Wozzeck is a very, how can I say, practically untangible. You cannot touch it practically. It's, for instance, Wozzeck himself is a man that is not retarded, but I would say that is a man that is born in the wrong time for one reason. He practically cannot understand anything that is happening to him. And that is the thing that I found it very fascinating for that reason. Because you would say certain things and it meant practically impossible to be credible. It was the opposite. And like I said, it's so long, I've not done it, that I cannot talk too much about it. I only promised myself that when I did it, that never again I would do it, for a simple reason. Not of the difficulty of the role or anything like that. It was not that reason. But for the first time in my life, I was overpowered by a drama. And that was Wozzeck. And in fact, the next day that I finished the opera on television, I was a case for the hospital. Not that I'm mentally disturbed. No, I was not mentally disturbed. But physically, I was completely anemic, for instance. I needed to take some shots for at least a month after that. And in fact, the doctor wanted to give me blood transfusion because apparently my system was completely in disorder. And that's why I said, no, listen, this kind of opera, I'm not interested for that reason. First of all, I'm so well served with Mr. Verdi or Mr. Puccini. That was the reason why I remained with Verdi Puccini.
What was it about the character that so overpowered you? He murders his wife, doesn't he?
He doesn't murder his wife because they're not married. But the only thing is, like I said, it's so, how can I say, it's so contrary of my own personality that it was very difficult to bring myself, because, you know, when you do that kind of a role, you really have to start to feel, to come at a point where the role is you, and not you are the role. No, it's the opposite. And you really have to put the character under your skin. And I have to say one thing. I had done the day we did the show, we had to do it 5 times. And that means 5 run-through of the opera. We had done a few cuts in it, but we still have to do it 5 times. And we started that morning at 9 o'clock, and we finished at 11 o'clock. And I'll tell you one thing. It needed nerve of steel to be able to go through. In fact, the producer said to me, he said, Louis, if you refuse it, he says, I will not keep a grudge against you, because it's a very treacherous role. And he was right. But I wanted to feel the challenge. And I conquered the challenge, but with the greatest difficulty.